Hello, everybody. Good morning. This is Steve Britton speaking. It is 10:54 a.m. on Friday, October the 21st, almost an hour after I was scheduled to go on air. This involved a lot of swearing, a lot of cursing, and a lot of pounding the desk. Basically, it involved a temper tantrum on my part. Hey, I got an 8-year-old. I'm allowed to have the tantrums too, because my computer was just not cooperating with me today. One computer, I use an application called Manycam, and on one computer, every time I tried to do something, the application would crash. And on my other computer, the sound like this all the sound sounded like what I just did all the time. So it was just god awful. It was a terrible experience, and as I said, it involved a lot of swearing on my part. So with that, we are finally here. I am finally live. And I'm showing a video which has a video feed actually of Google Chrome, actually, is what I use. And you can see there, it's just my screenshot, my logo. You can support me on patreon.com. SC Britton is the link. You can support me on minds.com, minds.com. SC Britton is where you can find me over there as well. So I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere, really. So there we go. Anyway, with that in mind, I'm going to talk about a little bit of stuff. And I'm just checking the sound again. There we go. Anyway. Oh, it's a little loud. With that in mind, I'm going to talk about a little bit of stuff. All right, so we're just doing a quick adjustment of the sound. I'm just checking the sound again. Oh, it's a little loud. That's better. Okay, I wanted to talk today a little bit about the whole subject, well, not really the subject, but what went down in Florida yesterday. You see, Richard Spencer, everybody's favorite punchable Nazi, and I'm not serious, by the way. You don't need to punch a Nazi. You don't punch Richard Spencer. Just don't waste your time on the guy. And I'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. The point I'm trying to make here regarding Richard Spencer. Whoa, what's that? There we go. Regarding Richard Spencer is the governor of Florida declared a state of emergency in the district of the University of Florida, where Richard Spencer had rented some space and was going to give a talk. The school, don't go to school today. Just stay away. Don't go to his talk. Just ignore him, leave him alone, let him do his thing, and hopefully nobody will show up. The usual suspects, of course, did show up. Antifa was there. Black Lives Matter were there. By any means necessary was there. They had their demonstrations. One guy hugged one of Richard Spencer's supporters, who once this guy walked away from the guy who hugged him, another guy decked him in the face, gave him a bloody lip or a bloody nose. And so it continues. Fortunately, there wasn't any violence like we saw in Charlottesville. There wasn't any violence like we've seen in Berkeley. People were generally well behaved. But it's pretty sad, in my view, that we have to declare a state of emergency, effectively declare a form of martial law, because some guy wants to give a talk. I mean, what is this world coming to? Where Richard Spencer, a guy who, if you ignored him, if you didn't show up to his talks, if you didn't make a big deal about what he was saying, would just crawl back into whatever wet hole the guy came out of. He'd slither off back under the rocks. Instead, everybody shows up, yells and screams, makes absolute fools of themselves, and they give the guy a platform. He gets a platform and he gets recognition. He gets noticed because everybody is up in arms screaming about how horrible he is. I wouldn't know the guy even existed if it wasn't for all this screaming and outrage about him. And that is to say nothing about the fact that when he was doing a Man is on the Street interview, somebody just walks up and punches him in the face. That's just as inappropriate as some of the stuff he says. Look, we all know the guy's a moron. The guy is an absolute idiot. He's a bigot. He's a racist. You know, let him have his 15 seconds of fame, and he'll then go away. Don't bother showing up to his talks. Just say, yeah, you know, if you happen to see some of his ilk around, just sort of look at them, laugh a little bit, and walk on. You don't make a big deal out of it. You don't need to make they don't need to make a big deal out of you. You don't need to make a big deal out of them. Ignore him. That is the best thing that you can do, because these guys crave the attention. It's almost as if I think the guy's got narcissistic personality disorder. There's a guy up here. He's an anti-abortion crusader. His name is Bill. I'm not going to go any further than just give you his first name. And he goes around constantly all over Western Canada, dropping pamphlets in people's mailboxes with very graphic images. And he goes around, he takes pictures of politicians, because he not only is an anti-abortion crusader, but he's also a crusader against homosexuality. He's the type of guy who just doesn't give up. He doesn't stop. He refers to homosexuals as sodomites, and then he takes pictures of gay people in bathrooms and such, doing whatever gay people do to each other. And he takes pictures of local politicians and superimposes them over the bits that would generally need to be censored. And then he puts this long rambling message, and he puts these things in people's mailboxes or under their doors. And then he posts about his adventures online, and a whole bunch of people write back to him and tell him how wonderful he is for it. And then other people, of course, because he's dumb enough to include his home phone number in these things, people phone him up and scream at him. And nobody seems to get that he craves this kind of attention. This has nothing to do with him crusading against abortion, or this has nothing to do with him crusading against gays and lesbians and sodomy and all that. This is all about him getting attention from people. Richard Spencer, and while this guy, the guy that I'm talking about, this Bill guy, is certainly he's no Richard Spencer. He's not evil. He's not a bigot. He's not a racist. He's actually, I'm sure he's a well and truly decent guy, other than the fact that he just doesn't know how to package a message in a way that is palatable for the people he's trying to get the message to. He thrives on the shock value, and most people go, ugh, and just walk away from him. He does more damage to himself than good. Richard Spencer is the same, as is with anybody on that whole ideological slant. But this whole thing got me thinking, and that's the crux of what I wanted to talk about today. The alt-right. Because Richard Spencer defines himself as alt-right. And I was talking with a guy over on Twitter earlier today. And he saw that I was going to talk about the alt-right today. And he said, oh, good, maybe someone will finally explain what the alt-right is to me. This is something that I've been accused of being part of a few times, he says. And I don't really know what it means. And it's only been since the last year or so that I've been accused of this. Well, As I said to him, and I'll say to you now, if you are worried about being part of, or if you are being accused of being part of, you are probably not alt-right. If you think that the Liberal Party is the political arm of the CBC, and if you think that the CBC is the propaganda arm of the Liberal Party of Canada, which is more likely the case, you're probably not alt-right. If you call yourself alt-right, and if you are a white supremacist, you probably are alt-right. If you have a flag of the state of Kekistan, the wonderful country of Kekistan, on your person, on your phone, anywhere in your home, you're probably not alt-right. If you have a pin of Pepe the Frog, you are probably not alt-right. If you like to post pictures of Harambe, you are probably not alt-right. Now, back in the day, when the alt-right started to show up, I did some delving into it. I was wondering what this whole alt-right thing was about, and at first, it seemed it was a bunch of initially. This is ages ago. Initially, it seemed to be a bunch of young conservatives online who like to troll people a little bit and post silly memes, lots of Harambe memes, lots of Pepe the Frog memes. It started over on 4chan. And I don't bother with 4chan. I don't go over there. And then, of course, maybe a little bit over on 8chan or Reddit or anywhere that people can hang out and be pseudo-anonymous. But that's where it started. And at first, it was trolling, mischief, causing trouble, getting people angry for the sake of triggering them and having a little bit of fun while you're doing it. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. And it started to grow. This movement started to grow. And it started to take hold. And I know Richard Spencer at one point did grab the term, and he's registered the term, the domain altright.org or .com or something. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to be going there to find out what's there anyway. And that was when it started to evolve from this trolly, mischievous online thing and started to become something a little bit more insidious. At first, I myself would have considered, I'm using the past tense, and I would have considered, not that I did, I want to make this clear, not that I did, not that I am, because I'm definitely not. But I would have or could have considered myself to be a fellow traveler along with the alt-right, because they and I did have some areas of overlap. I too would use memes sometimes. I too would say things in rather provocative or outrageous ways to get my point across, partly because you don't have a lot of time or space on Twitter to say things, but mostly because I just haven't got the time or the patience to get my opinion out there in a nicer way with some people. Online, it's a lot more difficult to get across nuance, tone of voice, and the like, for that simple reason. So at one time I would have, now I never did agree with any of the memes and such that the alt-righters would put up about Muslims. And I've got other friends who aren't alt-righters, who aren't alt-right. I don't have any alt-right friends as far as I know. But I've seen these Muslim memes by others as well. And I really got a little bit sick of the Muslim memes, because I would get into a debate with somebody and they would just flood me with all these different memes. Now, a meme makes a point, but it doesn't prove anything. A meme is a statement of opinion. It's a picture is worth 1,000 words. But people would flood me with meme after meme after meme, and they just drown out the conversation with all these different memes. And it became obvious to me that these memes were a tactic to end the conversation and to suppress discussion and discourse when they disagreed with a person. So I eventually gave up, and I'm not going to have any discussions about that with people, because for that very reason. But that was the very beginnings of my discovery of the alt-right, and I'm thinking, okay, well, alt-right, alternative right, whatever. But then the U.S. presidential election occurred. Donald Trump surprised everybody, myself included, by getting himself elected. You know, I think Donald Trump is a bit like Zaphod Beeblebrox, only he's got the one arm and he's got the two arms and the one head. Thinking about it, that's a thought. That's one I would call a random brain fart that just showed up out of nowhere. But yeah, I think Donald Trump is pretty much the Zaphod Beeblebrox of the United States. I'm going to have to tweet that one later. That's good. I'll have to remember that. Anyway. Whoa. Yeah, mic stand. That was when I noticed that the alt-right had really changed. It was no longer a movement which was about mischief and trolling. It became a movement of organized bigotry. It became a movement of white supremacy. It became Richard Spencer's plaything. And that was when I stopped identifying or really having anything. I never did identify with them, again, as I say, but never really had anything to do with them. And now I'm probably one of their largest critics. I've got no time for this shit. But that's the story of the alt-right, and that's how it became what it is. Milo Yiannopoulos has, of course, got himself into some hot water because he also did a bit of a talk and bit of a write-up on the alt-right when it started up and before it morphed into what it is now. And people try to associate him with the alt-right, where they hate him just as much as he hates them. They hate people who are gay. They hate black people, right? So here we're dealing with a gay black guy, or he's not a black guy. Milo Yiannopoulos is not black. He's British and he's white, but he's gay and he's married to a black guy. So there you go. So that's where the alt-right has become. And I'm going to say this again. I've said this before about the alt-right. They're not really right. They're left. They've coined themselves the alt-right, but they've got nothing right-wing or conservative or libertarian about their ideology. They define themselves as identitarian. And we all know identitarian means identity politics. And once you get into identity politics, you're a collectivist. And if you're a collectivist, and as a collectivist, that is a whole left-wing ideal. Us, the group, together, the strength of the numbers, the community. Where do you think the word communism comes from? Commune. Anything that is authoritarian is fascist. Anything that is authoritarian is left-wing. Anything that is identitarian is authoritarian. And anything that is identitarian is fascist. So don't let the alt-right fool you into thinking or believing that the alt-right is in any way, shape, or form right-wing, because frankly, it isn't. It is ultra far left. So you get the alt-right, you get the identitarians of the right, you get Antifa, you get Black Lives Matter, you get By Any Means Necessary, all facing off against each other. And you've got this big war between left-wing organizations. And that proves, yet again, that it is the left, not the right, that is inherently evil and violent. QED. I'm Steve Britton. If you like what you hear, please do consider supporting me over on Patreon or Minds, M-I-N-D-S, minds.com. Subscriptions can start at $1 a month, and they go up $1, $5, or $10 a month. Support is always appreciated, never expected, and any support that I do get from anybody out there in the world will be reinvested into making this program that much better. And that's it for me for Friday, October the 20th. I'll talk to you on Monday.